Let's bring in political and social commentator Bongani Mahlangu as we look into the issues of service delivery in Diepkloof, Johannesburg. Bongani, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here on the SABC.
No, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity.
Let's look at what's transpired in the wake of the protests in Diepkloof. Why is it so difficult for government to be addressing service delivery in townships in areas like Diepkloof, Alexandra, and others?
So we'll start off with, thanks for the question. So we'll start off with pathway dependency. If you look at the areas you have mentioned and more, you'd find that that's the areas with least economic activity compared to your more developed areas. For instance, if you look at Diepkloof, Diepsloot, or Soweto, Diepsloot, Alexandra, those are your township and rural areas of Gauteng. And then that's where about 25 to 30% of economic activity takes place, whereas that's where the majority of citizens of the municipality reside. So, and then the rest of economic activity would take place in your more urban areas, which would be your historically white areas. So then when it comes to budgeting and planning, you'd find that as so much as majority of people reside in those areas, that's not where your majority of resource allocation is. It still goes to your more developed areas. Arguments can be made that there is low revenue payment and collection in those areas. However, how do you get those areas to a point where people can be able to pay for services rendered or received? Whereas you still have local government that wants to widen its indigent book in order to increase its equitable share. So there's no exit strategy for those people. There's no investment in economic activities for those people, and those people are forever dependent on the state. And also what then happens is that when there is rural-urban migration, most of these people that migrate are received by those areas. And then it then puts a further puts further pressure with regards to delivery of services in those areas. So little is being done. We can even go beyond that and be more academic. We say, for instance, we look at the weak economy, and as a result, operational costs of local government are increasing, whereas there is low collection. We find that unemployment is a problem. That is why I spoke about the increasing in the indigent register. And also the rates of payment or the declining rates of payment. And then you find that more governments like City of Johannesburg, there's an increase in their prescribed debt. That is debt that they can't collect. There's inequality and the issues of urbanization, whereas bulk of resources go to one area and least of resources go to the other area. There's also poor financial management and also corruption. Here we talk about non-cash backed budgets. So if you look at the City of Johannesburg, along with other metros and municipalities, you'd find that in the SDBIP, there are resources allocated for certain activities or items, whereas you find that they have a low collection rate and there is no way that they will achieve those items. They will ensure that those items materialize, but they are there and they speak as if they'll be able to generate that money. So what they're basically doing is inflating their revenue collection. And also you look at their usage of grants. The principle here from National Treasury is that we give you a grant, you use it, we give you more. You don't use it, we take it away. So you find that the usage of grants is so poor that the grant allocation itself diminishes or decreases over time and makes issues even worse.
Bongani, thank you for speaking about the issue of economic activity. I think it's brought to my attention now about how we can start to make cities more inclusive, how we begin to address some of the apartheid spatial and even industrial planning or designs to mitigate against some of the contemporary problems that we've inherited and continue to face.
Yes, so basically I use the umbrella term of pathway dependency in policy formulation and practice. So you find that your apartheid spatial planning, the same practice, principles, behavior, it's still applied today in a democratic setup. So if you want to then change the way things are, uplift poor communities and so forth and so on, you have to move away from that. So you have to be radical in terms of policy formulation, meaning that's a 180-degree change in how you look at spatial development. because you cannot have continuous or perpetually an area such as Soweto, such as Alexandra, for example, grossly under-resourced. And then the very same people from that area, when they look up, they see the tall buildings of Sandton in 2023. And a lot of activity takes place in Sandton, and less activity, economic activity, takes place in Alexandra. So that causes problems, because we have also noted that if you look at service delivery protests, they take place mainly in provinces such as Gauteng, Western Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal. And that is because the poverty in those areas, the poor people in those areas are exposed to the wealth of this country, and they get upset as a consequence, then they protest. So you have to change a lot of things, but with change of things, you move away from your apartheid spatial planning. That means you have to think differently, a radical mind shift when it comes to policy formulation. And that is what we are not seeing. I can even make an example. Some municipalities, when they go and develop their integrated development plans, their IDPs, they don't even consult these communities. In fact, in the sense that the executive makes decisions without the consideration of inputs of community members. In fact, they use the IDPs of previous years and they just change the date. So they just go to communities as for compliance measures with the Promotion of Administrative Justice Act, I think Section 3 and 4, to say we have consulted the people that this policy will affect. So that means then they rely on historic policy positions, behaviors, and practices in formulating policies that must govern the day. And that is why we get this repeated apartheid spatial development, distribution or redistribution of resources that excludes others and includes others. And as a consequence, our communities react, and they react in the best way. They feel they'll be recognized, they feel they'll get a reaction, and that's through protest. Because if you look at the people of Diepkloof today, if they had not protested, the media would not be concerned, the mayor would not be concerned, the administrators in the city of Johannesburg who must implement the SDPIP, because that's the business plan, would not be concerned. And it's unfortunate that these things are happening in 2023.
Bongani, a bottom-up approach perhaps is what's needed to hear the cries on the ground, to cater to the long-term solutions, just given the context South Africa finds itself in heading into elections. As we head to the polls next year, the ballot obviously getting stretched. We're wondering whether political parties or independent candidates can help to address these challenges that they face. Just very briefly as we conclude this conversation.
All right, thanks. So I think from that, we already have a sample that we can work on, which is what happened in local government. That so many people contest from so many organizations, put forth so many people to contest for the mayoral positions. And some of those people, due to these coalition arrangements, made it to become MMCs, and some even made it to become mayors of municipality. They completely failed. So it shows that even the political establishment in this country does not put forth the best brains, the best people to execute political mandates and develop political plans. I can tell you now, some mayors, some MNCs don't even understand the Systems Act, Structures Act, Municipal Financial Administration Act, and it's those Bibles that must guide their actions on a day-to-day. They don't even understand the systems of delegation. They don't have the power. They don't understand the powers they have, and then they mess up. So unfortunately, going to elections next year, we are going to see a lot of rent seeking from communities, which is justified, because it's the only time that all organizations pay an ear to community concerns. And some might even try to address community concerns, not just at the municipal, local government level, but provincial and national. For instance, we are seeing some other provinces are reacting aggressively towards mass employment opportunities. This is bad. Politicking. This is bad campaigning while waiting for the actual and official declarations of campaigns for next year. So these things are going to happen now, and as communities, we are forced to be opportunistic to look into what is happening today. Oh, they want my vote in several months' time. Therefore, this gives me an opportunity to then express my satisfactions and dissatisfactions with the hope that there will be immediate intervention of such. But it is unfortunate that there will be growth when it comes to the ballot in terms of parties contesting. However, in terms of quality of the people that those parties bring forward, there might actually be a decline or none at all, as we have seen in local government. So we need quality here. We cannot have a typical politician that goes on a platform and spew rhetoric, but when given an opportunity, and we have seen under coalitions that most parties will get an opportunity even next year, they fail.
Bongani, lots of questions at this point. We'll leave the conversation there for now, perhaps continue to monitor developments. But I want to thank you for your time with us here on the SABC and for weighing in on the back of obviously the protests occurring in Diepkloof.